The only reason I noticed the outlet was even being used was because my dog Zeke wouldn't stop barking at the side of the house. I walked around, and there it was, a thick orange extension cord running from my outdoor outlet to a cement mixer in my neighbor's driveway. And standing next to it, barking orders at two guys in neon vests, was Gloria Granger, chairwoman of our HOA, queen of bake sale power trips, and apparently now an energy thief. I marched over. "Gloria, why is your contractor plugged into my house?" She didn't even look embarrassed. "Oh, Zachary, calm down. It's just for a little stucco work. I told them it was fine." "You told them it was fine? You don't live here. You don't get to say that." She waved a manicured hand like I was a fly. "It's community cooperation. You've got the outlet in the perfect spot, and the HOA encourages neighborly support. That's not in the bylaws. You should reread them," she snapped, turning away. "If you have a problem, bring it up at the next board meeting." I yanked the cord out of the wall. The mixer sputtered to a stop, and one of the workers gave me a look like I'd just unplugged his life support. I didn't care. That night, I checked my power usage. My smart meter showed a massive spike over the last 3 days. I did the math twice. It was over $600. 600. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, heat rising in my face. Gloria had stolen from me, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning, I filed a police report for utility theft. The officer looked skeptical until I showed him the meter logs, the photos of the cord, even my security camera footage of Gloria pointing at my outlet like it was her personal gift from the gods. He nodded slowly. "This is enough to open an investigation," he said. "Good," I said. "Because she's not getting away with this." I was at work the next day when I got the call. "This is Officer Morales," the voice said. "We visited Miss Granger this morning." I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding. And she didn't deny it. Claimed it was authorized under HOA privilege. That's not a thing, by the way. No kidding. We've passed the case to the DA. It qualifies as misdemeanor utility theft, possibly felony based on the amount. We'll be in touch if they proceed. I thanked him and hung up, but the war was only just starting. When I got home, there was a notice duct taped to my front door, not in an envelope, not mailed, just slapped across the glass like a parking ticket from hell. Violation notice: unauthorized tampering with HOA-approved contractor equipment. Fine, $150, due in 7 days. I laughed out loud. The audacity was actually impressive. I texted my neighbor Lena, who lived 2 houses down and had been tangled in her own mess with the HOA last year over the color of her mailbox. She showed up 20 minutes later, holding a steaming mug of tea and an eyebrow raised. They fined you for unplugging your own house. I handed her the notice. She read it twice. "This is fake. It's on HOA letterhead. Still fake. They can't issue fines for something not in the bylaws, and there's no record of this being voted on." I'd bet they never even had a meeting. I had already guessed as much, but hearing it confirmed gave me a new surge of focus. "I need the last 6 months of meeting minutes," I said. "Can you get them?" She tilted her head. "You think they're hiding something?" "I think they're making things up as they go, and I want to catch them slipping." She nodded. "I'll ask Greg. He's on the board but hates Gloria. He'll give me whatever I want." By Friday, I had a manila envelope thick with printouts sitting on my dining table. I read every page. There was no mention of contractor authorization, no vote on outlet usage, and absolutely nothing about fines for interfering with construction equipment. But what I did find was even better. In the notes from a February meeting, there was a brief line attributed to Gloria. "We'll use Zach's outlet. He never notices anything." No vote, no discussion, just a casual declaration. I circled it in red pen and scanned it into a PDF with the rest of my compiled evidence. The power usage logs, the photos, the footage, the police report, and now the falsified violation notice. Saturday morning, I printed 2 copies of everything. One went into a folder labeled Criminal Case. The second I slid into a bright blue binder labeled HOA Oversight Emergency Board Meeting Request. Then I went door to door. Most of my neighbors weren't fond of Gloria, but they tolerated her because she was loud, persistent, and had made herself too much of a hassle to argue with. But when I showed them the binder laid it all out in hard data and real numbers, they weren't just irritated. They were furious. By the time I got to the 12th house, people were signing my petition to call an emergency HOA meeting. I had 27 signatures by Sunday, enough to force a vote under Article 3, Section 7 of the HOA Charter. Monday morning, I submitted the petition to the HOA secretary, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. At the emergency meeting 3 days later, the room was packed. Folding chairs lined the back wall. Even people I hadn't seen since the block party last summer showed up. Gloria walked in like she was arriving at a garden gala, wearing a silk scarf and oversized sunglasses, sipping from a stainless steel tumbler. The moment the meeting opened, I stood. I moved to open discussion regarding financial misconduct and unauthorized use of private utilities by Chairwoman Granger. Gasps rippled through the room. Gloria's mouth dropped open mid-sip. "You're out of order," she snapped. I held up the binder. "No, I'm not. Article 3, Section 7. Oversight review quorum met. You don't get to shut this down." The secretary, who had clearly had enough of Gloria, nodded. "He's right. The motion stands." I stepped to the front and opened the binder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The documents did the talking. I showed the smart meter logs, the footage of the cord, the quote from the February meeting, the fraudulent fine notice. Then I played a recording. It was from my security cam mic. Gloria standing in my yard telling the contractor, "Just plug it in here." "He won't say anything." The room went dead quiet. Then someone in the back muttered, "That's theft." Gloria stood, tugging off her sunglasses. "This is nothing but a smear campaign." "Zach has always had a problem with authority, actually," said a voice near the front. "He's got a problem with criminals." It was Greg, the board member Lena had mentioned. He stood up, holding his own copy of the minutes. "I didn't vote for this. None of us did. Gloria acted alone. And this isn't the first time she's overstepped." Heads turned. Greg continued. "Last month she used HOA funds to pressure wash her driveway, claimed it was for a neighborhood beautification pilot. I only found out when I saw the receipt." Now the room was buzzing. People were whispering, flipping through the handouts I'd passed around. A woman in the second row stood. "I motioned to suspend Gloria Granger from her position pending a formal audit," seconded. Someone called. Gloria turned red. "You can't do this to me. I am the HOA." "No," I said, "you were." "Now we're taking it back." The vote passed. Unanimously, the board approved a temporary leadership committee until the audit was finished. Gloria stormed out, knocking over a chair on her way. Outside, I saw her pacing next to her car, fumbling with her phone. Within an hour, I got a call from Officer Morales again. "She just tried to file harassment charges," he said, sounding half amused. "We've reviewed everything. You're in the clear. In fact, the DA has decided to prosecute. She's being charged with felony utility theft and fraudulent use of HOA authority." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The next week, a notice went out to the entire neighborhood. Gloria Granger was officially removed as chairwoman, pending criminal proceedings. A new election was scheduled. The audit was underway, and my power bill, fully reimbursed from the HOA's general fund after a unanimous vote. I replaced the outdoor outlet with a locking cover and added a motion sensor floodlight just for good measure. Every time I walk past it now, Zeke trots over and gives a little wag of his tail, like he knows we won something, and he's right. We did. By the following Monday, the neighborhood had transformed. The towering silence that used to hang over community issues had been replaced with open conversations on front lawns and sidewalk corners. People were finally talking, sharing stories, comparing notes, and most importantly, asking questions they'd been too nervous to raise before. One of those questions came from Eddie, a retired Navy machinist who lived across the street in the blue single-story ranch house with the flagpole out front. He stopped me while I was watering the front shrubs. "Zach," he said, voice low, "you ever wonder what else she was tapping into?" I turned off the hose. "What do you mean?" He scratched at his chin. "I checked my water bill yesterday, been steady for years. Then last month it jumps by nearly a third. Thought it was the city until I saw your binder at the meeting. Got me thinking." That was all I needed to hear. I went inside, grabbed my laptop, and pulled up the city's public works site. With Eddie's permission, I accessed his usage log. The spike was real. And it lined up with the same 3-day period my electricity had been drained. I contacted 2 more neighbors. Same pattern. Water usage skyrocketed during the same 72 hours. One of them, a single mother named Tanya, had been out of town that entire week with her 2 kids. Her house should have had 0 usage. That night, I patched into my security system again. I hadn't checked the side yard camera past the day I caught Gloria's cord. This time, I scrubbed through the entire week. On Wednesday, around 6:30 in the morning, a white, unmarked van pulled up. 2 men in paint-splattered overalls walked straight into my yard, uncoiled a green hose from behind my garden box and attached it to the spigot. They didn't knock, didn't ask, just helped themselves. The hose led across the lawn through the fence right into Gloria's backyard. I checked the timestamp, then checked the date. It was the exact morning Tanya had left town. They were stealing water too. I took screenshots, downloaded the video, and sent it straight to Officer Morales. He called within the hour. "This just became something bigger," he said. "This isn't just a neighbor dispute anymore. We're opening a broader investigation into HOA misuse of utilities and potential contractor fraud." By Thursday, 2 plainclothes detectives were walking the neighborhood, asking questions. One of them, Detective Lynn, asked if I could compile a list of residents whose property bordered Gloria's. They suspected multiple utility taps had occurred over the past year, not just mine. I agreed and went further. I built a shared spreadsheet, added entries for electricity, water, and even landscaping services. I emailed it to the neighbors who'd signed my petition, asking them to fill in anything unusual from the last 12 months. Within 48 hours, the spreadsheet was filled with nearly 24 entries. One of them included a note from Harold, a semi-retired accountant who lived behind Gloria. He wrote, "Found a second irrigation line behind my shed last fall, thought it was from the original builders. Now I'm not so sure." Detective Lynn asked to inspect it. When he and Morales dug into Harold's backyard, they found a buried splitter valve running from his system, one that led, once again, under the fence into Gloria's yard. The valve had been disguised under a layer of decorative rocks and a few fake plants. Morales just exhaled and muttered, "Unbelievable." The city's utility department was notified. They confirmed that Gloria had reported 0 water usage for 3 months straight, during which time her front lawn had remained perfectly green, and her contractors had completed a full backyard renovation. The city filed a separate complaint. Meanwhile, the HOA audit uncovered more. Over $19,000 in unapproved expenses, all authorized with handwritten notes in Gloria's signature, but never brought before the board. Receipts for custom landscaping, pest control, personal window cleaning services, and even tickets to a municipal management conference in San Diego, which, as it turned out, had been canceled due to weather. She had gone anyway. The invoice showed a 2-night stay at a beachfront resort and a spa treatment billed as professional wellness. The board couldn't ignore it anymore. They called a second emergency meeting, this one with a city attorney present and a representative from the district attorney's office. Gloria didn't show. Someone said she'd left town the night before, but it was too late. Detective Lynn had already filed for a warrant. The next morning, Gloria was picked up at a bed and breakfast 2 counties over. She was charged with felony theft of utilities, misuse of community funds, and contractor fraud. Bail was set at $50,000. The news spread faster than a wildfire in August. Neighbors stood outside watching the local news van roll down the street. The headline read, HOA chairwoman arrested in utility theft scandal, but the fallout didn't stop there. The contractor Gloria had hired the one who'd used my power was also being investigated. Turns out he wasn't licensed to operate in our county. And according to the city's records, he'd performed over a dozen unpermitted renovations in the neighborhood under Gloria's protection. She'd signed off on every one of them under HOA discretionary authority. Now those homes were facing citations. But instead of blaming the homeowners, the city paused enforcement until they could determine how many had been misled. Tanya, the single mom, came by the next afternoon to thank me. Her voice shook as she spoke. I never would have known. I would have just kept paying bills I didn't know, I nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of everything that had happened. I didn't think it would go this far, I admitted. Eddie, who'd come by to join us, crossed his arms. What matters is you didn't ignore it. Most people would have just paid the bill and moved on. The audit continued for another 2 weeks. When it was done, the HOA's general fund was found to be over $12,000 in deficit, despite monthly dues having increased the year before. That prompted a civil lawsuit from the board against Gloria personally, seeking restitution and damages. The new interim chair, a former school principal named Darlene, immediately froze all discretionary accounts and set up a finance oversight committee composed entirely of residents who'd never served on the board before. I was asked to join it. At first, I said no. I didn't want the power. I just wanted my neighborhood back, but Lena convinced me otherwise. She said, if you don't step in, someone like her eventually will again. We need someone who knows how to spot the cracks before they spread. So I agreed. The committee started meeting every other Wednesday in the library of the community center. No closed doors, no secret votes, no silent rubber stamps. The first motion we passed was to require board approval for all contractor work and to ban the use of resident utilities without written consent. The second was to reimburse every homeowner who'd been affected by Gloria's scheme's electricity, water, landscaping, all of it. Each check came with a formal apology signed by the new board. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase what had happened, but it meant something. And that binder. The blue one I used to bring Gloria down. It sits on the shelf in the community center now, labeled in thick black marker. Granger Docket 2024. It's not just a record, it's a warning. Because the next time someone thinks they can treat the neighborhood like their personal kingdom, they'll know exactly how that story ends. 2 weeks after Gloria's arrest, I received a letter from the county prosecutor's office confirming that I might be called as a witness. I folded it carefully and tucked it into the folder I'd labeled Utility Theft Case Materials. It was getting thick. Each new page felt like another brick laid in a wall between what the HOA had been and what it would never be again. The neighborhood had settled into an uncomfortable calm, like a town after a storm. People were friendly but cautious, measuring their words at block gatherings, waiting to see if the damage Gloria had done was fully unearthed. I had no idea how deep it really went until the city inspector showed up with a clipboard and a quiet expression I'd come to associate with bad news. He knocked just after 9. Zeke barked once and trotted to the door, tail stiff. Zachary Mendez, the man asked. That's me, he held up his badge. City code enforcement, we've got a situation, you got a minute? I stepped outside, feeling the first edge of unease. This about the stolen utilities, not exactly. He glanced down at his notes. We've been reviewing the permits associated with the properties Gloria Granger signed off on over the last year. Your address is listed as a power donor on a renovation application for the home behind you. Did you authorize that? No. He looked up, frowning. Because your signature's on the form. I didn't answer right away. I just held out my hand. He passed me the clipboard. There, next to the line marked homeowner authorization, was my full name written in block letters that looked nothing like my handwriting. That's not mine, "All right," he said, scribbling something. "That's forgery. We're adding that property to the list for formal investigation. How many others, counting yours?" 23, I stared at him. "And all of them have falsified documents?" 18 confirmed so far. 5 more pending verification. That evening, I called Greg from the board. He picked up on the second ring. "I need to see the contractor logs," I said. "All of them, not just the ones from this year." "I figured you might," he said. "They're already at the community center." "But I should warn you, there's a lot." He wasn't kidding. The next morning, I met him in the back room behind the front desk. 4 cardboard boxes sat stacked on a folding table, filled with binders, receipts, and loose pages. The air smelled like dust and toner. I started with the oldest entries. The first few months were boring minor repairs, landscaping contracts, boilerplate stuff. But by month 7, things took a turn. Entire invoices were missing names. Some were issued to the HOA but charged to private addresses. One contractor listed only as Apex Solutions had been paid nearly $28,000 over the span of 8 months, but there were no descriptions of work performed. "Who's Apex Solutions?" I asked. Greg scratched his head. "Never heard of them." "I thought Gloria only used local guys." I photographed every page that mentioned the company. Later that night, I ran a business lookup through the state registry. Apex Solutions wasn't a licensed contractor. It wasn't even based in our county. It was a shell company registered in the name of Travis Granger, Gloria's nephew. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. She hadn't just taken power. She'd built an entire fake infrastructure underneath the HOA and funneled money into it. I printed everything and brought it straight to the sheriff's substation the next morning. This time, Detective Lynn wasn't surprised. "We've been tracking Apex for 3 months," he said. "Never had enough to tie it to Gloria directly. This changes that." I handed him the folder. "You've got it now." 3 days later, Gloria was formally indicted on 2 additional charges: wire fraud and falsifying public records. The news hit like a lightning bolt. The story made the local paper, then the regional news. At the next HOA meeting, Darlene stood at the front of the room, hands folded in front of her, and made a simple announcement. "We are no longer an organization that tolerates secrecy. We are no longer a tool for personal gain. And moving forward, every document, every contract, every vote will be public record." The room broke into applause. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt earned. After the meeting, Eddie pulled me aside near the coffee table. "You know," he said, "when all this started, I thought you were just going to file a complaint and move on." "I was," he gave a short nod. "Glad you didn't." By the end of the month, the audit team finalized its report. Gloria had misappropriated over $72,000 in HOA funds, not including the utilities she stole or the fraudulent contractor payments. The board voted unanimously to pursue civil damages. The city added her to a growing list of defendants in a municipal fraud case that reached into 3 neighborhoods. But the best part came quietly. I got a letter from the county court. The case against Gloria was moving forward. I was listed as a key witness. And attached to it was a restitution form confirming that the charges included full reimbursement for every dollar of my inflated power bill. The last loose end was the outlet. I didn't need it anymore. Not really. But I had an idea. That weekend, I removed the old cover, rewired the mount, and installed a new fixture. This one wasn't for power, it was a small, weatherproof plaque. Laser engraved. I bolted it into the brick next to the outlet. It read, "Private property. No HOA authority." Below it, I added a second line, "Thieves get prosecuted." Neighbors walked by and chuckled. No one asked questions. They didn't have to. 2 weeks later, the new board held its first election under the revised charter. I ran for treasurer. Not because I wanted the title, but because I wanted to make sure no one else ever used it the way Gloria had. I won by a landslide. That night, Lena dropped off a bottle of cider and a card that read, From stolen power to elected power, not bad for a guy with a barking dog. Zeke barked twice when she left, then sat by the door wagging his tail like he understood every word. I leaned back in my chair, looking out over the neighborhood I'd nearly lost and helped rebuild. And for the first time in a long while, the lights on my street felt like they belonged to us again.